the land of enchantment.
121,000 square miles of diverse landscape and unsurpassed beauty.
A melting pot of culture and tradition found nowhere else.
And food we all love.
All year long, we've hit the road,
finding those experiences that are uniquely New Mexican.
Bringing you to places that make us who we are.
And sharing the stories of the people we've met along the way.
This is Celebrate New Mexico. Hi, I'm Todd Kurtz. All year we've been celebrating our state's 110th birthday, traveling to every corner of the state, over 15,000 miles in the car. That's like driving from LA to New York 5 times, in search of New Mexico's best stories, from the big events to the small towns and really everything in between. Tonight we're going to take you on a journey across New Mexico, sharing some of our favorites. There's no better place to start our adventure than in the capital city, Santa Fe. And Royal Day, I know you love to go up to the capital.
I do. Most of my family is from Santa Fe, so I've spent a lot of time in that part of New Mexico. It's such a unique place. In fact, it's actually nicknamed the City Different because of the unique combination of culture and architecture. It's the oldest capital city in the country. It was established back in 1607, and it has the unique distinction of being named the very first creative city in the country. 1 in 10 jobs in Santa Fe is tied to art, and it has the highest percentage of writers and authors in the U.S. There's a lot of history in Santa Fe. On the north side of the plaza is the Palace of the Governors. It's the oldest continuously occupied public building in the country, dating all the way back to 1610. It's been home to Spanish, Mexican, American, and Pueblo Indian leaders. In 1909, it was designated as the home for the Museum of New Mexico. A lot of New Mexico history is preserved through photos inside.
I think photos really give you a sense of connection with the past. There's an immediacy when you look at a photo that is really powerful.
It's estimated the museum has 1 million historic photos, but no one's really counted them all. Only about 3 to 5% of the collection is digitized, but the photo historians are working to safely store more of them online, immortalizing them for years to come. Today, the Palace of the Governors is known for its long portal, where Native American artists sell jewelry and other works of art. And not far from there, you can see the famous Loretto Chapel. It has a staircase that'll leave you puzzled. Some even call it miraculous, mainly because of answered prayers and the questions about the staircase built in the 1800s still unanswered. The mystery began when the French architect behind the chapel died in 1878, before a staircase to the choir loft was built. So the Sisters of Loretto turned to prayer.
And they said a 9-day prayer in Catholic traditions known as a novena, asking St. Joseph to pray for them to Jesus to help them with their problem. On the last day of their novena, this man rides in off the desert on a donkey, an elderly man with a gray beard as they described him, and told them he had come to build a staircase.
He says the man worked on the staircase for 3 months and then vanished without getting paid. And the lumberyard told them the man didn't get any materials from them.
So that's why the sisters, because of their prayers, his description, and the usual event about the wood, came to the conclusion that our Lord Jesus sent St. Joseph from heaven to build a staircase. And that's why originally it was known as the miraculous staircase.
And there's still questions about the chapel to this day. First, where did the wood come from? Lindsley says he gave a sample of the wood to a naval scientist in 1995 who said the closest he found to it was a tree that grows only in Alaska, but it wasn't the same. Secondly, how does the staircase stand? It's not supported from below and there are no nails. It's held together with wooden pegs. Lindsley says he met with more than 100 experts who've built circular staircases.
Not one of these 120 American companies said they could reproduce the staircase the way it was built. No civil engineer on the planet has been able to figure it out.
Lastly, who built the staircase? He says all claims have been debunked, and so we're back at square one.
So why does it stand? Nobody knows. Where does wood come from? Nobody knows. And who built it? Nobody knows. And that's why it's still known, even to this day, as the miraculous staircase.
That staircase is truly beautiful. And Santa Fe is known for art, but one place is taking it to the next level with a 3D art experience that you can touch, feel, and even smell. I'm talking about Meow Wolf. It started in Santa Fe as a collective of artists back in 2008, made of young artists who would sometimes dumpster dive to source materials they could turn into art.
It was a bunch of younger kids who were looking around the art scene in Santa Fe and saying I don't fit in here. Like, I am not a classical landscape painter.
The Santa Fe location opened in 2016 and they have added several new rooms since then. It's been so successful, they've expanded to Las Vegas and Denver with plans to open another exhibit in Texas next year. From Santa Fe, you can take the Sky Railway to Lamy, New Mexico. Some prominent Santa Feans revived the 141-year-old railroad. And today the train has everything from stargazing rides to holiday-themed adventures. And when you reach the Lamy Depot, you'll find the Legal Tender Saloon. It's been there since the late 1800s.
It's one of the most warm and welcoming buildings I've ever stepped foot into, and I've never really experienced, you walk through the door and people are like, they're in awe, they're in shock. There's not very many buildings like this around.
The decor and ambiance bring you back to the Old West, making this destination dinner worth the stop. And just north of Santa Fe, one of the richest places in religious history in the world is nestled in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, Chimayo. The area has been inhabited by Pueblo Indians since the 12th century. They believe the land was shared with supernatural beings and healing spirits were in hot springs. They say those springs dried up, leaving behind healing earth. Now, during Holy Week, thousands of people make the annual Good Friday pilgrimage to El Santuario de Chimayo for reflection and healing. Pilgrims will rub the dirt on their hands and arms or take it back to those who can't make the journey. And Todd, I had the opportunity to go to this very special place where I met Deborah Higginson, who now I call a friend. She spent the pandemic making these wooden chips with messages of love and hope, and then she scatters them along the route for the pilgrims to find. It's definitely a special time in New Mexico, and it was great to share that with her.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Well, let's stay in northern New Mexico. Head to a town that's known for its art, skiing, and historic landmarks. Taos is also home to one of the most photographed places in the state. And that's where Sasha Leninger joins us.
Todd, I'm at the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge. The site is spectacular, even more so in person. From high above, the river looks calm. When you're standing in the middle, you're 650 feet above the river, making it the second highest highway bridge in the U.S. After being built in 1965, it was deemed the most beautiful steel bridge in the long span category, and that beauty lives on today. The bridge has been part of several movies shot in our state, including Terminator, Wild Hogs, and Paul. This beauty has drawn people here for generations. It was colonized in 1615, but it wasn't until 1795 that people settled in the area. They built the plaza as a fortified adobe structure for trade between Taos Pueblo and the Spanish. In the early 1800s, trappers began to make Taos their home. It became a town in 1934, and today the quaint community has a population of 6,400. The word Taos means place of red willow. It comes from the Tiwa language spoken on the Taos Pueblo. It's named after Red Willow Creek, the Pueblo's primary source of water for drinking and for ceremony as well. The Taos Pueblo is a World Heritage Site, and it has a cultural history that dates back more than 1,000 years.
Our elders maintain the oral traditions that we have here in the community. Our language is Tiwa, and it's all oral.
Meaning nothing is written down or recorded. Each story is passed down from generation to generation.
We're so family oriented. We have annual feast days, which are like our holidays. It's just a huge gathering of our family and friends. Of course, there's tons of food, and usually, we welcome our friends and family into the traditional village.
That's where you'll find the Pueblo, entirely made of adobe, which is earth mixed with water and straw, then poured into forms or made into sun-dried bricks.
Multi-storied buildings are family owned, and they are still maintained and still used. We have about 50 people who still live in there year-round.
They do not have running water or electricity. The walls are several feet thick. The roofs are supported by timber and covered with packed dirt, all of which comes from their rich lands, part of which they lost for several years.
Taos Pueblo is known for its Blue Lake that was returned in 1970. We struggled for 64 years to get it back from the government, which was taken away from us.
It's a ritual site where Taos people would go for ceremonial reasons and was a staple for life on the reservation. But it was taken from the Pueblo in 1906 by President Roosevelt to become part of the National Forest Lands.
Our agriculture tradition was very much challenged. Utilizing water was very much challenged. I believe that During that time is when you see our first dependency happening on external resources.
Hunting also changed. The Pueblo had to find alternative resources in order to feed and take care of its people. In 1920, they began charging people to come into the village, and it slowly opened up its doors to tourism.
And then you hear the stories of, going back to when we didn't have the land. You hear the stories of our men taking trains out to D.C.
Members of the Pueblo fought to get their land back, and finally, in 1970, 64 years later, it was returned by President Nixon. Only Pueblo members are allowed at the Blue Lake and mountain areas. Now, the main crops grown on the Pueblo are corn, squash, and bean. The reservation also well known for its pottery using mica.
These cultures of the Pueblo and the old Spanish cultures that have lived here that are quickly changing still have this really beautiful history that ties us to the earth in a way that maybe big cities don't have.
Art is a big part of what makes Taos so special. Just off the plaza, you'll find May Torres' studio with fascinating work. She was born here and creates her art here because it's where she feels connected. Today, Taos is a hub for artists who thrive on the natural beauty that surrounds them. I share that sentiment because the beauty here is spectacular, and part of it's the skyline. The highest point in New Mexico is Wheeler Peak. It rises out of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains at 13,161 feet. It's named after Major George Wheeler, who surveyed the area in the 1870s. Today, it's a popular hiking spot. At the top, breathtaking views spanning hundreds of miles. There's also some mysteries here in Taos. In the 1990s, residents said they could hear this hum, this constant hum here in the area. Well, investigators found that 2% of people could actually hear it. But what causes that noise? That is still unknown today. But Todd, can you actually hear that hum while you're here?
Sasha, thank you. Never heard it before, but fascinating what's going on up there. Well, so much to see and do in our state. It's worked up my appetite. Coming up, we're going to introduce you to our unique foods and share their origins. And we'll travel to the northwestern corner of the state, home to some of the most unreal natural wonders in the world. Hey, welcome back. Time to talk about some food here. And to help me out, we got Darlene Melendez.
Absolutely. New Mexico has some of the best food, and it is so part of the culture, and there's a lot of history tied to it too. Like this, when the Spanish arrived in 1519, they brought livestock and foods the people of the world had never seen before. So things like sheep, horse, cattle, pigs, and chicken, as well as melons, apples, sugar, and wheat. Indigenous people introduced them to corn, squash, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes, and beans. And to put this in perspective, before this time, there was no tomato sauce in Italy or potatoes in Ireland.
Here in New Mexico, these ingredients all come together to create a unique fusion of culture.
Absolutely. Angel Salcedo spent some time in the kitchen with a local chef to learn more about New Mexican food.
New Mexico food is the best food in the world.
Behind every New Mexican dish is a New Mexican story. But what makes a dish New Mexican?
It's a blend of food styles and ingredients from all over the world.
Ariston Yazzie is a native chef. He says it's a story of culture fusion, and our state's 19 pueblos have deep roots in New Mexican culture.
We are just pretty much learning more and more every day about different cuisines, different cultures.
To learn more, Ariston brought me into the kitchen.
Put it in there, grab it.
To help.
Oh, geez, goes right.
Yeah, I didn't do it right. As much as I could. First, a fan favorite, the Tewa and Navajo taco.
So how much do I put on it?
Its roots date all the way back to the Civil War.
They give us flour, oil, and salt. And that's all we have for ration while we're trying to survive.
Navajo taco is very New Mexican, and it's very Navajo, but it has these elements that you'll find in a Nuevo Mexicano kitchen.
This is ground beef, just one scoop in. I'll do this one. This is a Navajo taco. We use lamb on this one.
They've turned a war ration into an incredible cuisine.
Voila, done. That's it.
Awesome. Spanish culture is also influencing the foods we know. Blue corn enchiladas are the perfect example.
You get pretty much the taste from the cheese, the corn, the saute of the squash, the corn also here. This is seasoned corn with jalapenos, cilantro on top of it.
We are a mixed people, mixed blood, mixed culture.
It's the culture that Ariston hopes to celebrate through food for years to come.
Americans also introduced baking powder, giving rise to sopapillas.
How good can it get there? Green chili, uniquely spicy, filled with flavor, of course, often adding a little more zing to anything from hamburgers to pizza.
Absolutely, some characters there, but did you know that green chili actually didn't originate in New Mexico? Early Spanish explorers discovered the fruit in South America before bringing it here in the early 1600s. For hundreds of years, chilies were inconsistent in flavor, prone to disease, and needed a lot of water to grow. So in the late 1800s, Dr. Fabian Garcia worked to create a new chili that would be bigger, tastier, and resist wilting. After 9 years of research, he developed New Mexico No. 9, the first chili pod with a dependable size and heat level.
It really led the way to commercial production, where farmers would start growing this, selling it amongst their community, and then the canning industry kicked off.
Today, all chilies grown in our state can be traced back to that pepper. It takes about 80 days for chili to grow, and each plant produces 10 to 20 pods.
And we love it so much, don't we? But it's not just the spicy foods either.
No, not at all. With 400 restaurants in town, Santa Fe boasts a top-notch food scene. From French to Caribbean to New Mexican, you can travel the culinary world in just one spot. Cheryl Alters Jameson is an award-winning cookbook author. She raves about some of her favorite dishes in Santa Fe: the lobster roll at Santa Cafe, omakase dinner at Sushi Sue, and the Compounds chicken schnitzel.
The restaurants, the quality, the number of them, it's really remarkable. You know, it's equivalent of a major city.
And speaking of cuisines of the world, Todd, you have a favorite French restaurant.
I do. Clafoutis, it's called. It's this beautiful French dessert, and their entire dessert bar is just, it looks like a piece of art, so go check that out.
Oh my gosh, we're all gonna have to. And speaking about food so much, it's making me thirsty, especially for one of my favorites here, which is the wine. New Mexico is the oldest wine producing region in the United States. The Spanish had strict laws prohibiting growing grapes outside of the country. But in 1629, Friar Garcia de Zuniga and a monk named Antonio de Arteaga smuggled vines from Spain and planted them south of Socorro. So if you're a wine connoisseur, be sure to taste the difference here compared to the more well-known California wines.
In our white wines, we get a touch of saltiness, which comes from the soil here. We're in a very alkaline type soil. Our reds also kind of have a dusty character to them, which, you know, it's kind of like the desert of the Southwest is coming through in these wines.
And today you can find nearly 50 wineries across the state. So Todd, New Mexico is also one of the top producing states for pecans. You spent some time down in southern New Mexico in a pecan orchard, right?
Yeah, we're one of the leaders in the entire country in pecans because one of the largest pecan farms in the world is right here in New Mexico.
The few miles through the Stamens Pecan Orchard is stunning. There are few places in our state where you get a canopy overhead like this.
And in 1932, they started planting pecan trees.
Sally Stamen owns the orchard. Her grandfather and great-grandfather bought the land in 1925, been in the family ever since. Originally, they planned to grow cotton.
A truckload of pecans came through some nursery tree, so my grandfather bought them.
This day, Sally and her son Rafael are showing us this year's crop. The 4,000-acre farm produces the most pecans in New Mexico. And as a whole, our state is a leader in pecan production. In 2021, 30% of U.S. pecans came from New Mexico. Second, just barely behind Georgia. The Stamens pecans are shipped all over the U.S. and Europe. They typically harvest in late November when the leaves have fallen.
Once we've had a good freeze, then we wait a few days, and then we shake the trees with a boom shaker.
I was hoping that was going to be the answer.
Yeah.
Shake the tree, and then what, net underneath?
The pecans fall to the floor.
They're swept into rows and scoop them from there. It's about a month-long job at a big farm like this. Half of the trees here are from that original crop. They planted 4,000 acres between 1932 and 1939.
We don't really know how long they last. They could be here another 100 years.
And hopefully a lot more generations of Stamens growing pecans in the Mesilla Valley.
Well, now that my belly is full, we are ready to do some more exploring. Have you ever wanted to be in 4 places at the same time? You can do that. Northwestern corner of the state. The Four Corners Monument is the only place in the country where 4 states meet. Marks the quadrupoint between Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico. People travel from all over the world to pose on that landmark. Doug Fernandez with us now. And Doug, you traveled up to this area earlier this year.
We sure did, and we learned an awful lot about Farmington. It has a rich history dating back centuries to the Anasazi people, and the Navajo Nation borders the city. It became known as Farmingtown for its successful crops, but the name was shortened decades later to Farmington. By 1901, apples were the top crop. The focus changed to mining and drilling, at times New Mexico's leading oil and gas producing spot. The development of an oil pipeline caused a boom in the 1950s. The population surged from about 3,500 to 35,000. Now, not far from the city, some of the most unique rock formations in the world.
Yeah, no kidding, especially at the Bisti-Danizen Wilderness. Some of the stuff there looks truly out of this world, and the history is incredible.
There are some of the most unique rock formations on the planet, with constant changes in the landscape as you hike. A team of geologists, paleontologists, and wilderness experts took me on a 2-mile trek. Cool thing about hiking here, there are few defined trails. It's more like free roaming.
It's just an incredible place. No matter how many times you've been here, you always find something new. And it's kind of otherworldly out here. It's kind of like a Martian landscape or something at times.
And if you do come take a hike out here, one really cool thing just to keep your eye out for is this rock formation right here. They call these hoodoos.
So hoodoo is a formation where you have a more resistant rock on top and a less resistant rock below. There's a lot of different shapes, and people like to come up with their own names for them when they see them because they're just all these crazy, neat shapes.
The group took me to a very old log jam. These are petrified logs. They were once trees standing here about 70 million years ago. They fell, were buried, and then fossilized. The wood was replaced by minerals, so they still look like the trees, but are more like rocks now.
The little shiny crystals in there that have replaced all of the cellular material in the wood.
The other fossils all over this area are from dinosaurs, a dream spot for paleontologists.
This was a pretty lush area for dinosaurs to live. We're still finding new species all the time, so the scientists who've been working out here, they've been working diligently to publish on new types of dinosaurs, new species of dinosaurs.
Another unique rock formation, Shiprock. It's about 40 miles west of Farmington, rising 1,800 feet into the sky. Early explorers named it after a 19th century clipper ship. Geologists believe what we see today was once part of a volcano that erupted 30 million years ago. It originally formed about 3,000 feet below the Earth's surface, but rock has since eroded, leaving this. The Navajo refer to it as Sebatai, meaning rock with wings. It's tied to a legend where a monster bird was attacking the people.
One of the twin warriors, a monster slayer, decided that he was going to take it upon himself to destroy the bird so that we could save our people. It ended up crashing into the earth upon its death, and thus you have the formation there.
Now, south of Farmington is Chaco Culture National Historic Park. The Anasazi people lived at Chaco Canyon more than 1,000 years ago. They settled in cliff dwellings before building these astonishing 3-story structures. This place was the center of trade and art among native cultures. Today, the ruins still stand, but our closest connection to those who were here might be what happens in the sky.
So when you come out here to see the dark sky, you're getting the closest to the reality that the people here 1,000 years ago had, because that's the part of the environment that has changed the least.
Chaco has a perfect combination for stargazing, very little light pollution, a high elevation at 6,200 feet, and dry air. New Mexico is home to 23 Native American tribes and 19 pueblos. One of them is the Zuni Pueblo, located about 45 minutes south of Gallup. The Spanish sent men looking for gold and found the Zuni Pueblo. It was the first exploration almost 700 years ago into what is now New Mexico. But the Zuni people had already been there for about 1,300 years, and much of that history is depicted in their petroglyphs.
There are some petroglyphs that you can actually interpret, and then there are some where you just let the mind do its own imagination.
Today, the Pueblo welcomes visitors to learn more about their history and traditions. So much culture and diversity in this region of the state, and it's that combination that led to the development of Gallup's economy. In fact, it's known as America's largest cottage industry, meaning goods are handmade in people's homes and brought to the city for sale. Reporter Genevieve Glass visited a trading post that's been selling these for more than 100 years.
Founded in 1913, Richardson's trading company first sold food, supplies, and other items that people would need on the reservations.
It was like a small grocery store at that time. And then they started bringing in their rugs, and the rugs they would make at home. The kids wanted the candy, or if they needed to buy something, like their coffee or something of that sort, they would come in and maybe make a rug, or maybe have a piece of jewelry, and they would trade.
And trading became more common 5 years later, thanks to the railroad and the coal mines.
They would stop at the train station, and a lot of the natives would take their rugs and jewelry and sell to the people when they got off the train.
A tradition that continues today, the woven rugs, colorful and intricate, filling the room.
The weavers at Pinon, Arizona will make the storm pattern. This is the center of the universe in this storm. In each of the four corners, there's a sacred mountain.
The goods at the trading post, all local from New Mexico and Arizona.
We do a lot of business with the Zuni and the Acoma, Laguna, the Hopi. And so many come here, but the majority of our business is with the Navajo Nation.
The tourists come from everywhere, all over the world. We get them from Japan, Germany.
Gallup's population of about 20,000 triples on weekends due to an influx of artisans and people looking to buy their goods.
I recently spent time in Gallup. This city has a special feeling when it comes to veterans. The memorial downtown honors all who served, including Navajo Code Talkers and Medal of Honor recipient Hershey Miyamura. There's even a museum in the hotel lobby of the Comfort Suites showcasing war memorabilia and pictures. It's this connection to military service that makes Gallup the most patriotic small town in America. The city earned the title through an annual contest put on by Rand McNally, but it was canceled, and Gallup was the last city to be recognized.
And Doug, of course, there's some unique geology out there.
That's right. It became the backdrop for a lot of Hollywood movies. They made them in the 1940s. This became known as a home to the stars, and the El Rancho Hotel was built to house them. Big names you even recognize. John Wayne.
Yep.
Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, yeah.
And this last guy, I think he was president.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan. That's right. Now, the rooms are even named after them. More than 150 films shot there, a period known as the Golden Age of the Western.
Well, coming up here, we're going to experience New Mexico from some new heights, bringing you up close to the thrills and sharing our favorite ways to enjoy the outdoors. New Mexico is home to lots of outdoor activities. From some of the best skiing spots in the world to flying high on zip lines and a tramway. Hey, Ron, I know you love biking. Where are some of your favorite spots to go?
Well, Todd, by far my favorite spot to bike is the Bosque Trail. I like it because it's relatively flat. It's a good aerobic activity, and there's a community of exercisers out there who are getting in there walking. In some cases, they're running, rollerblading, and of course, they're biking as well. Now, one great spot, not only for biking, but for lots of outdoor activities, is Farmington. Chokecherry Canyon has 100 miles of off-road trails, combining riverbeds, sand dunes, and slick rocks. Mountain biking is also popular with the easy trails for families all the way to tougher terrain for the more experienced. Or head over to the Animas River for some kayaking. Now, if you're looking for something a bit more relaxing, you can sit on the banks for some world-class fly fishing. Or hit Pinon Hills Golf Course, rated one of the best in the country. New Mexico is known for its skiing industry. Take a look here. 8 ski resorts are scattered across the land of enchantment, each one with a unique experience. Sipapu prides itself on being the first to open each season. Red River has fantastic snowmaking capability. Angel Fire is the only place to go skiing at night, and it has a great tubing run. Down south, Ski Apache has a 15-minute ride to the top, but they also have the only closed-door and heated lifts in the state. One of the most popular is Taos Ski Valley. It was founded back in 1955 by Swiss ski pioneer Ernie Blake. He spotted the mountain from a plane and had a vision for the future ski area. Now, some people doubted him along the way, saying the mountain was too steep, but he didn't let that stop him. And today you'll find restaurants, stores, and lodging. Taos Ski Valley is home to 14 lifts and 110 runs, making it one of the best ski resorts in the world.
We say that because we have incredible terrain. So we have athletes who come here who are used to skiing in Colorado or skiing up in Canada, and they're like, Wow, I had no idea New Mexico could have this terrain. And the way it expands backwards and how we have the hike-to terrain is also really different from other resorts.
When the snow melts in Taos, the rafting season starts. It's big business, especially when there's lots of water. The rafting season typically runs from March to October. Several rafting companies are based in Taos, and there are guided floats at several different spots along the Rio Grande. The Taos Box is legendary in whitewater circles for being steep, fast, and full of rapids. If you want to experience New Mexico from higher up, just make your way to Ruidoso, where you can fly 55 miles per hour on the Apache Eagle Zip Rider while getting breathtaking views of Mescalero Lake. But be sure to keep your eyes in the sky. It's called Eagle Rider for a reason.
We have a couple of eagles, several eagles that come down, and they hang out around the lake, they fish and stuff during the winter time, so that's where we got the name.
Zip lines are a great way to get more people to ski resorts in the summer. Angel Fire and Ski Apache both have them. Let's go even higher, about 10,300 feet to the crest of the Sandia Mountains. You can rise above Albuquerque on the Sandia Peak Tramway for stunning panoramic views. It took 2 years and more than 5,000 helicopter flights to build. And it's not only a unique landmark in New Mexico, but in the whole country.
Tramways are very common throughout Europe, but here in the United States, there's very few here. We're the longest aerial tramway in North America, the third longest in the world.
The tram makes about 10,000 trips a year, with around 250,000 riders making the 2.7-mile journey to the top. Todd, have you taken a ride?
Oh yeah, I love the tram. I recently got to ride on top of a tram car for a story there. Always remember that experience. Another favorite adventure was exploring the Rio Grande from a rather unique perspective.
It's beautiful, quiet, just the sound of birds.
This is a resource that I want to share, the experience that I want to share.
Corey Spores owns MST Adventures. He rents kayaks and paddleboards and does guided tours.
What is it for you about getting out on the river and paddling?
Yeah, I like to do it to reduce stress and just go out and share it with other people. That's really important.
And he says the Rio Grande is underutilized as a way to connect with nature. Misconceptions over the cleanliness or just people not thinking about the river as a spot for fun.
We don't see it. We only see it when we cross the bridge.
Right.
When we cross the bridge, we're angry because we're in traffic.
Yeah,
right?
And this feels much different when you're out in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He rents equipment year-round, snowshoeing, camping, mountain biking, even surfing on the Rio Chama. He educates people to help them see and experience the beauty of the outdoors.
I think it was Alameda it got to, didn't it?
I believe so.
And even though we're in town, the wildlife is great out here. Corey said he once saw a bobcat fall in the river.
It was like walking down a log to get a drink, presumably, and it lost its balance in the water, out of the water, and gone.
I actually enjoyed that so much I've done it a few more times since doing that story. Well, coming up, a classic ranch experience, but that's not all Roswell has to offer. We're going to take a look at its history that's out of this world and the UFO crash that started it all. Plus, we're making a stop in Alamogordo to a place whose beauty needs no explanation. Let's head south, where ranching exploded during the westward expansion in the 1800s. Today, there are places where not much has changed. I visited one of them near Roswell. And we've talked about in this series that really you can take trail rides in all corners of this state, but if you want that cowboy feeling, you got to get around some cattle, and today we're doing that.
We're hanging with the horses at Burntwell Guest Ranch. This is a full-functioning cattle ranch. Sheep next to the house, cattle in the pasture, and some new shoes going on the horses. Best part, you can stay at the ranch and see what it's like to immerse yourself in this lifestyle.
Do you want to go and see some cows?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's do it.
My guide is the owner of this beautiful property, Kim Chesser. And yes, the corgi always comes with to check cattle. Kim was raised on this ranch. He and his wife have been hosting people for about 20 years now.
We knew we had to have some other income rather than just cows to ever pay for it.
Twice a year, the guests get to help with a cattle drive. It's a bucket list experience, moving cattle across pastures. He said it's for those with an adventurous spirit.
We've had snowstorms and ice storms. I just fed these cows here this morning.
Other times of the year, you get to be part of the day-to-day operations, like us, checking cows today. Great time of year with the calves. Kim said opening his ranch to guests really opened his eyes to the beauty out here.
It's been really good for me because I realize all of the blessings that I'm around that I just overlook because I've been here all my life.
Drink it in. Something special about the pace and creatures at the ranch.
When you're not used to riding a horse, you're a little sore for a couple of days after that ride. There are lots of state parks in New Mexico, but the very first one is in Roswell. Bottomless Lakes was established back in 1933. There are many lakes, but Lee Lake is the biggest one. You can swim and paddleboard there. People in the area love it, and for rangers who work there, it's a delightful office.
I love being out here. This is a beautiful place.
It's called Bottomless, but there is a bottom. The lakes are made from sinkholes, and it's a popular place for scuba divers. Roswell is best known for aliens and UFOs, the only place in the world where aliens greet you at the fast food joints. But one famous alien mystery has spurred an entire tourist industry for the city. It all started with what's called the Roswell incident, 1947, where something fell from the sky.
I'm not here to say it happened or it didn't happen. What I can say, the bottom line is something happened here in 1947 that's still covered up.
The place where the UFO was reported to have crashed is about 75 miles from Roswell. Actually, in 2018, for the very first time in more than 70 years, the public was able to see exactly where the debris was found. It was first called a flying saucer, then a weather balloon. For people who believe we are not alone, it was a fascinating spot to tour. Every year, Roswell hosts a UFO festival, and this year was special because it marks 75 years since the Roswell incident. This year's UFO festival brought in over $2 million to Roswell and more than 40,000 visitors. Now to another city in southern New Mexico that's out of this world. Alamogordo has a rich history in space exploration, and it's home to natural wonders like White Sands National Park. That's where Brianna Albizu joins us.
Hey Todd, I'm here at the beautiful dunes in White Sands right now, and it's really a treasure here in the land of enchantment. White Sands is a unique and fascinating place with miles of white dunes, but they're not actually made of sand. The dunes are actually white gypsum that have been collecting here for thousands of years. After ancient lakes evaporated, they left behind crystals that were carried away by strong winds. The process still happens today, giving us the beauty of the largest gypsum dune field in the entire world. Now, those ancient lakes also left behind signs of life dating back more than 23,000 years. Fossilized tracks from woolly mammoth, giant ground sloth, dire wolf, and American lion have all been found at White Sands. Humans, too.
We all know what's happening. We know that a mother's probably just picking up her child and carrying her. And fascinating is you can see the adult footprints. You can even see by how they were left that the person's shifting the child from hip to hip.
There are tens of thousands of preserved footprints, making it the largest collection in the world. Now, just north of here is the White Sands Missile Range, a hub for space and military research. It all started back in the 1930s with rocket fuel tests. Then in 1954, Dr. John Stapp rode a sled that reached 632 miles per hour, making him the fastest man alive at the time. The Apollo engine was tested here in 1963, and in 1982, Space Shuttle Columbia touched down because of bad weather in California. Pilots say that after the landing, workmen would continue to find pockets of sand on board for the rest of Columbia's service. The White Sands Missile Range was also where the U.S. tested Trinity, the first atomic bomb. The Trinity site is open just twice a year to the public. The area is still used today to test rockets and other military equipment. Alamogordo's history with the military and space runs deep, and you can learn more about the space age from a museum right here in town.
The drive to go to space really started in this part of the country and in this part of New Mexico.
That's what many visitors take away at the state's Museum of Space History.
What the museum commemorates is a lot of those folks and a lot of that technology that were developed a decade before NASA ever came about.
The multi-story facility offers a variety of exhibits highlighting key moments.
Oh, there they go.
From training chimpanzees to the first moon landing. This prized possession, a moon rock, just one of many items showing proof.
Folks actually get to see that. It may be something that they will see very few other places.
The concept of space is a big passion for staff members like Michael Shinaberry. He still remembers when his family watched the historic mission on TV. He was 12 years old at the time.
Brings you back almost, in a sense, you know, to that memory. How does it feel to have that?
It makes me feel a great memory.
Shinaberry now stands as a leader for the next generation, children with hopes of blasting off into a world unknown one way or another.
We really hope, like I was inspired, to inspire those folks to become the next link that will advance our future.
Now outside the museum, you'll see a grave for an animal who was instrumental in space exploration. Ham was the first chimp launched in space. He was called the Astro Chimp. He was trained at Holloman Air Force Base, and in 1961, he did a suborbital flight lasting 17 minutes, making it back to Earth safely with only a bruised nose. A place east of town was built to help the military. It's called the Sunspot Observatory. Plans started during World War II because the government figured out the sun was impacting some radar and radio communications. The first telescope was built in the 50s, and the one you see now was built in 1969. Much of what we know about how the sun affects us is actually because of the research done right here in New Mexico.
Our eyes have really been open to the critical role magnetism plays in making the sun behave the way it does every day.
The observatory is open to the public, so be sure to come on out and see the telescope for yourself. It may not be out of this world, but it definitely grabs your attention. A giant pistachio just north of town. It's 30 feet tall and pretty tough to miss. The weather here is perfect for growing the nut. A fun fact here, 100% of pistachios grown in the U.S. come from California, Arizona, and New Mexico. You can visit the orchards like at Pistachio Land. They sell all sorts of things made from pistachios. And of course, the red and green chili flavors are the most popular.
That's what's so fulfilling, is watching people come in and ooh and ah and enjoy the products.
They harvest pistachios in July, but you can enjoy them all year round. Obviously a lot to experience here. And by the way, did you know that Alamogordo means fat cottonwood? So what's behind the name? The Eddy brothers started the town and named it Alamogordo after big cottonwood trees they saw by the Pecos River. Pretty interesting, right, Todd?
Alamogordo, fat cottonwood. Brianna, thank you. Glooms going up in flames, unique cultural experiences, and hot air balloons filling the sky with color. We'll take you to some of our favorite events in the Land of Enchantment. Welcome back to Celebrate New Mexico. The Land of Enchantment, it's home to some unique events you will not find anywhere else. Now, one of the most unique is the burning of Zozobra. And Shelley, we were there as Old Man Gloom went up in flames.
Oh, and did we have fun or what?
A little too much fun.
I mean, it was a couple months ago now, and we're still, whenever we see each other, we talk about it, you know.
The 90s music, you like that?
Nothing better. Do you think I liked it? You still hear some of the songs, right?
I can hear it.
Of my voice?
Yeah,
I ruined it for you, I'm sorry.
I can hear it.
The idea for this giant monster started in the winter of 1923. Artist Will Schuster was celebrating the sale of a painting with friends at the La Fonda bar. Everyone was grumpy and gloomy, so he asked them to write down what was bothering them, and he burned it on the table. Then on Good Friday, Schuster made a trip to Mexico, where he witnessed a unique celebration.
They would create a 5-foot effigy of Judas, right, the apostle that betrayed Jesus, and they would parade it through the town. They would throw shoes at it, they would spit at it, and at the end, in the plaza, they would actually burn it.
Schuster returned to Santa Fe and combined the ideas of writing down those glooms with the burning in a public spectacle. It's a community effort getting Old Man Gloom stuffed and built. Kids and adults of all ages joined staff to build the 50-foot marionette, and it's no easy task. Old Man Gloom weighs more than 2,000 pounds. Another big event drawing thousands, the Gathering of Nations. The sounds of drumming, singing, and dancing fill Tingley Coliseum as performers from all over the country take center stage. The event returned this year after a 2-year pause from the pandemic. And Gallup is home to the longest-running Indigenous peoples event in the United States.
It really is a unique insight into Native American and Indigenous culture. And audiences from all around the world come to this event, as well as tribes from different countries, different states, and different areas.
The Gallup Intertribal Ceremonial just celebrated 100 years. The competition has evolved over the years. A show of horsemanship turned to modern-day rodeo. Art like pottery and rugs are now judged, and now people from more than 500 indigenous groups worldwide come here to share their culture. And Gallup is also home to the world's second largest balloon gathering. The Red Rock Balloon Rally just celebrated 41 years. More than 150 balloons participated in the event. Balloonists from all over the world are eager for an invitation because it's a unique ballooning experience.
We get up in the air and we can see for miles and miles. There's a lot of interesting geology in the area. So we look down into these canyons, we fly down into them, swoop up and down like the eagles, and just have fun.
Balloonists get very close to the formations, some envelopes even touching the rock. Spectators even climb the rock for better views. One unique thing about the event is that it educates people about Native American culture. And the other big event we love being a part of every year, Balloon Fiesta, that happens right here in Albuquerque. It's an incredible event celebrating 50 years this year.
Always fun to cover, right? You were out there on a windy, chilly morning.
Yeah, but the hot cocoa and all the breakfast burritos warm you up.
Yeah,
of course, there were Fiesta classics, the burritos, the collector pins, and the special shapes we all love, but some new additions too. In honor of the golden anniversary, a reenactment of the first Balloon Fiesta, where 13 balloons took to the sky in a mall parking lot. And there was also a special drone show.
We both got to see this one in person. It sounded cool. I think it ended up being even better than I was expecting.
It really is amazing. Everybody just completely stops what they're doing, and the sky looks amazing. I mean, it really is spectacular to see.
Waiting for Dawn Patrol to pop up.
Yes.
And then to have something to watch while you're waiting.
It's fantastic. I could watch it all morning. And it honors the father of Fiesta, Sid Cutter. And even though the balloons didn't go up every day this year, as we know, when they did, it was a magnificent sight with more than 700 balloons filling the Albuquerque sky with so much color.
Looking at the video, what a spectacular event.
Every time we're out there,
Yeah.
it gets better and better. No wonder it's actually the most photographed event on Earth.
Not a surprise. Well, next we head to the state's first national park. We're going to show you how Carlsbad Caverns was discovered and take you deep below the surface to share its beauty. And it's the holiday season. New Mexico is home to some of the most unique holiday traditions, but not without some controversy. Welcome back. As we continue to celebrate New Mexico, we head now to the pride of the Pecos, Carlsbad. It's best known for the caverns, of course, but it also has a rich history and culture. It was first called Eddy after two ranchers who moved to the area. In 1899, the name changed after settlers with roots in England, France, and Ireland, and Germany moved to this area. They wanted to rename Eddy Carlsbad after a famous town that is in the Czech Republic. Now the county is named Eddy. There's an iconic building in Carlsbad. First it was a bank, now it's a hotel and restaurant filled with history. It has been there more than 130 years. When it was the first national bank of Carlsbad, it held cash from people like Pat Garrett, the sheriff who shot and killed Billy the Kid. In fact, Sheriff Garrett used to work out of the bank. The building sat vacant for decades until a family brought it back to life as a winery, boutique hotel, and a fine dining restaurant. But Carlsbad, it's best known for the caverns. Stephanie Muniz shows us inside.
In southeastern New Mexico, in the Guadalupe Mountains, there's a trip below the surface that'll make you feel like you're in another world.
When you take that journey down, putting yourself in a frame of mind similar to what some of those early explorers would have experienced, it's just phenomenal.
Our port guide, Aubrey Brown, is talking about Carlsbad Caverns. You can hike, but we made that journey down from the lobby to the cave via elevator in the visitor center. That took us more than 750 feet, or 75 stories down, in about 60 seconds. Talk about a change in altitude. And we ended up here in the big room.
The big room is the largest single cave chamber anywhere in the United States. And so for most people, this is the largest cave chamber they'll ever get to visit.
And it's pretty amazing. Just take a look around. She says what's unique to this cave is that it was formed by sulfuric acid. And from the stalactites hanging from above to the stalagmites below. You could say this has been around for a while.
The limestone that we are standing in dates to around 260 to 265 million years ago during the time of Pangea. The development of this cave is between 4 and 6 million years old. So the cave itself existed long before the entrance was open.
She says this cave has been known for thousands of years by Native Americans, but a 16-year-old cowboy named Jim White is believed to be the first prominent American explorer to enter in the late 1800s.
He found the cave because he thought he saw smoke on the horizon, and he followed it, and it turned out just to be bats. Hundreds of thousands of bats, what he described as boiling out of this whale of a cave. He came back a few days later with a lantern by himself, made a homemade ladder out of fence wire and sticks from the desert, and he descended into complete darkness.
Fast forward to 1925. That's when it became a national monument. Then it expanded to a national park by 1930. A first for New Mexico.
We are still exploring Carlsbad Cavern. We are right around, I think, 42 miles of passages, last I heard.
A spectacular wonder that could easily get bigger.
If you make the trip to see the cave, make sure you have plans to be there at dusk. That's when thousands of bats fly out looking for food. 17 different kinds of the flying mammals live inside Carlsbad Caverns. In the winter, they migrate away from the cave, but they come back in April, and each night you can watch as giant swarms fly out of the cave. There's also a unique holiday tradition in Carlsbad. It's called Christmas on the Pecos. You float the river on big pontoon-like boats, and all down the river you see beautiful Christmas displays, more than 100 of them. Many homeowners put these up themselves. The ride takes about 45 minutes. And there's lots of other holiday traditions in New Mexico. This time of the year, plazas, churches, homes, and businesses, they're lit up with luminarias, or farolitos, as they're known in northern part of the state. In Spanish, luminaria means illumination, and farolito means little lantern. This is where the name controversy starts. In the north, farolito is the name for the paper lanterns, and luminarias are the stacks of firewood that create small bonfires. Meanwhile, south of Santa Fe, New Mexicans call paper lanterns luminarias. In Catholic traditions, they're lit on Christmas Eve to guide the Holy Family. And we can't talk about the holidays without bizcochitos, the official cookie of New Mexico. They're made with cinnamon, sugar, and anise. They're frequently eaten around the holidays. And another holiday staple, tamales. Families work together to stuff pork or chicken and a corn dough called masa into a corn husk. They'll make stacks of these things to share on Christmas. The tradition dates back to the Aztecs, who believed eating tamales in the winter would bring them good luck. It's been so much fun exploring the land of enchantment with you tonight.
There are so many interesting places across our state.
And we've only scratched the surface.
As we experience everything New Mexico has to offer.
Learn more about our culture and traditions. And meet the people who make it one of a kind. We'll keep sharing the stories that make our state so special.
As we continue to celebrate New Mexico.